When we first start building speed, it's logical for players like me who like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and probably you too, to start in the box 1 position. But you can only stay in that area for so long before it starts to get repetitive. So today I'm going to show you a few simple tricks that you can use to connect the box 2 shape with down into box 1, and then from here into the backdoor pattern or the diagonal pentatonic that intersects box 1. That way you can start to move freely between those areas and do longer, faster runs that don't just use the same kind of 6 or 7 notes that we have in this area. Now, even though this is roughly based around Stevie Ray Vaughan, I will be using standard tuning for this lesson because the course that this is most related to, Texas Blues Speed Workshop, was done in standard tuning because I wanted it to be accessible to as many people. So we're going to be in standard tuning, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little handy screen here to talk about what we're doing. So we're in the key of B. That means our root fret is up here at the 7th fret. Now, in previous lessons in this series and over the years that I've been teaching lessons, I've taught a lot about how to use this general area of the box 1 shape. And so there's a lot of mileage that you can get out of. Okay, but as I stated in the beginning, it can start to sound a little monotonous. So let's talk about when you're in box 2, where you're typically doing Albert King. Even though we're not typically playing fast there, this is how you can start a run in box 2 and build speed as you drop down into box 1. So that's the first maneuver. So right here, we're at the 12th fret, 10 to 12 on the E string, and then slide up and back. That's the key. And then pull off to 10 again, and now to 12 on the B string. And then here's the trick. You want to jump right back up and down. And here's the ending part. We're going to go pick at 12, pull off to 10, and slide down to 7. Okay, so we used that little maneuver to build some speed in box 2, slide right down here into box 1, and from here, we can go right into the fast things that we may already know there. Okay, you see how that all works together? Now, there's one other way that you can do this. When you do this maneuver, the most logical thing to do is to start a descent on the root note of the high E string up here in box 1. But if you wanna, you can slide down on the G string instead, and that takes you right into that bend that starts off a lot of licks. Okay, it's a very subtle difference. So that's the transition from box 2 to box 1 to build some speed. Now let's say you've been in box 1, doing that kind of stuff. We need a way to break out of this pattern to get down into this minor pentatonic pattern that intersects box 1 and up into box 2. So the first trick is very similar to what we did in box 2. Sound familiar? Same notes, just an octave lower. So to put it in context, just continue down. Now, once you're down in this position down here, the pattern that you can build the most speed with, let me highlight that here on the fretboard, is 7 to 9 on the A string, up to 7 on the D string, and then slide down 9 to 7, pull off to 5 on the A string, down to the root. And then when you ascend back out of this, we have that same maneuver. Now I'm going to add a slightly different variation of the thing that we did. What if we just did a simple double back up here to the G string and down? That's a little less complicated than, okay, I started with this one because it sounds so much like what we did in box 2, but this, we find ourselves right in position to do those low runs down here. Okay, and you can even throw in a chorded hit there. Now, I don't want to make things more complicated than they have to be, but there is one more that I want to show you that Stevie used, and that is, okay, where we go 9 on D, 9 on G, back to 9 on D, 7 on G, and down. You can tell I'm even having trouble picking that, even with alternate picking at that speed. So this is where doing a little bit of hybrid picking can help. That's still one that I struggle with, but that is another one. Okay. Last thing, I promise. On the bottom, that is another transition that Stevie used. Walk up from 8 to 9 on the A string, 7 on D, back to 9 on the A string, back up again, and then hammer on. Walk down. Okay. So, just to review everything, we started looking at box 2 and going as a way to build some speed dropping from box 2 into box 1. The alternative to that was to go down on the G string, right into a bend there, okay? Then we talked about how when you're in box 1 and you want to extend to this lower region, how you can go using that same maneuver that we did in box 2 just down here. We also talked about how you can go just a simple double back. We also talked about this, that one that's a little more difficult. Then on the lower register, we talked about and then lastly, we talked about one alternative. Okay. So I realized there was a lot in this lesson and I went kind of fast, but I wanted to give you as much value as I could. But I'd like to encourage you, if some of the stuff that I was talking about here seems just a little bit out of reach, you are a perfect candidate for my Texas Blues Speed Workshop course. It is a massive course designed to take you from beginner level to advanced, building speed with licks that are things that Stevie Ray Vaughan and similar players actually played, but giving you the drills and the just amount of progressive difficulty and most importantly, milestones that you can measure your progress with. So it's not just a course. It is a whole system that has worked for so many of my members and customers. And so if you thought that what I was talking about here sounds like something that you want to get better at, but it was a little bit out of reach, then you're a perfect candidate for this course. There's 6 different levels, and I take you from beginner to intermediate on the basic track, and then you start right over again on the fast track and intermediate up to advanced. So there's a lot of headroom in this course. You're not going to run out of things to study. And if you want to get faster at blues guitar, I think you're going to love it.